Greetings, my name is Amir Fatir. This is part 2 of the Fitrah MGT series. In the Quran, Surah 3, Ayat 42, it says, Behold, the angel said, O Maryam, Allah has chosen you and purified you, chosen you above the women of all the world. Now what this ayat is indicating, and for those who are not familiar with the Quran, ayat means verse, but it also means a sign, a miracle. So what this is indicating is that the women who are typified by Mary need to be sanctified or purified, and that the MGT are the factor and force whose mission it is to help to redeem and sanctify the women of all the world or all the nations. Chosen you over the nation means that you are chosen to be the chosen healing factor for all the women in the world, no matter what their race, no matter what their creed, no matter what their nationality. The MGT and that type of initiatory order has a mission to help to purify, sanctify, and heal the women of all the nations. All women, even Western women, if you speak to them, feel as though they've been oppressed. And there's a good reason for them to feel that way. If you look at the condition, the psychological condition of the women of the world, and I mean Arab women, Indian women, Nigerian women, Afghan women, Chinese women, Korean women, Japanese women, European women, all the women of the world are angry at this day with men. And they're angry with men because men have waged physical, domestic, psychological warfare against women for the past 6,000 years. According to the law of Ma'at, there must be 2,000 years of masculine orientation, which is followed by 2,000 years of feminine orientation. And this creates a balance in the world. So during the age of Aries, which was the age before this age, the world was in a very masculine orientation. But in the age of Pisces, that orientation was to be switched over to the female persuasion or the female orientation, so that now we would have a healing and a cooling off of Aries fire. What we'll see is that men conspired to take over the role of leadership that at this time, was intended for women, and have now taken that over. So what has happened is that we've had 4,000 years of an over-predominance of masculine orientation over the world, and this has thrown off the balance. This has thrown off the law of Ma'at. If you ever look at the icon of the ancient Egyptians, those pictures tell an entire story. Many of those pictures are worth the information that's in an entire book. And if you look at the law of the image, of Ma'at, that goddess is shown holding a scale. And in the scale, there are two pans. One has a heart in it, and one has a feather in it. And so Ma'at's purpose is to establish and show balance. And this is the divine law. And this divine law is not a set of rules, regulations, and punishments. It is the law that everything in the world is interrelated, and everything in the world is interdependent, and that everything in the world should function according to the form-function principle. Now, for details on this, I recommend that you read a book by our brother Ra Amir that's entitled Tree of Life Meditation System, where he goes into detail on the law of Ma'at. In the Quran, Surah 55, Ayat 7 to 9, it says, And the asteroid belt, he raised her and set up the balance, that you don't transgress the balance. So establish the scale with justice and don't lose the balance. Since the symbol of Ma'at is balance, And just about everything that we have in the Bible and the Quran and other scriptures, either directly or indirectly came from the ancient Egyptians. We can be sure that this balance and this scale that's being referred to, which in the Quran the balance is called el-mizan, is referring to the type of balance in life and in nature and in the cosmos that is represented by Ma'at. About 2,000 years ago, the age of Aries, the ram, gave way to Pisces, the fish. Pisces is the feminine sign, and the fish, or the versicle, symbolizes the vaginal opening to the deep inner world. Also in architecture, when you see arches, these arches are all symbolic of a versicle and a fish. So in the first miracle that they record in the Bible of Jesus, he's multiplying fish and loaves and then turning water into wine. So the fish, if you look at the way it's drawn, is a graphic symbol of the woman's vaginal tract. But the vaginal tract itself is a symbol of the opening up of the mind to a much deeper level of consciousness that gives birth to a new reality and a new you. The male clerics, who are really clerks, the leaders of the world's religion. I want to say this, first of all, most of them have never had a spiritual experience in their lives. So what they are bookkeepers and clerks and writers and scribes and people who have a left-brain intellectual approach to spirituality, but have never actually had those experiences. And the scriptures are written based upon men and women who live their lives according to those experiences and receive or have downloaded to them revealed information because of their ability to have spiritual experiences. So the male clerks or clerics, they liked the power that they had during the age of Aries, and they didn't want to give that power up. So even though it was time to turn the emphasis over to the female priesthood, the priestesses and the goddesses, they figured out a way that they could hold on to the power even though their time for holding up power was up. By the way, this type of thing is called transgression. So they fought to stay in power even though it wasn't their time to remain in power. And so they attacked the priestesses and the esoteric goddesses and tore their temples down to the ground. You find this in the scripture where you see that Auset was persecuted by Set. You also see in the Bible where they have Jezebel, who is a great black African priestess of Auset. They have her portrayed as a harlot, a whore, and they're angry at the fact that she met her death in a state of peace. When they came to kill her, she sat in the window and adorned her face with makeup and waited for those unlearned savages to come and put her to death. In other words, she met her death in peace. As it is written, die not unless you're a Muslim. A Muslim is not a member of a particular creed or religion or club. A Muslim is a man or a woman who has unshakable inner peace. If you don't reach unshakable inner peace, then you're not a Muslim. You can shout out to whomever you want to shout out to. Any God, any prophet, any shahada. If you don't have unshakable inner peace, you have not attained to the state of being a Muslim, which is the state of Salam. The Inquisition was also an attempt to destroy the female influence in the world of spirituality. And so they murdered millions and millions of our priestesses and called them witches and all other kind of derogatory names that they didn't understand. That a witch is simply a wise woman who has achieved knowledge and practice in the spiritual arts. And because they couldn't control these women and they couldn't indoctrinate these women, they murdered them. The same thing occurred during the Salem witch trial. The same thing occurred during the African slave trade. And it took place on both sides. One on the Atlantic side, the other side, where the Arabs were enslaving our women. So they demean all women by blaspheming the goddesses as pagan false gods, and they even charge women in the name of Eve with the sin that Adam allegedly committed. Now, I don't want to go too deeply right now into the so-called original sin, but let me just say here that that's a metaphor. Women are not guilty for a metaphorical sin committed by a metaphorical human being. Okay? So they then turned women into property and treated them as if they were slaves. They stole some of the female spiritual power and symbols and turned them into male. Here are a couple of examples. El Shaddai means the breasted one. Some say the many-breasted one. El Shaddai is the name of God when in the Bible, when God spoke with Abraham. He said his name was El Shaddai. They turned El Shaddai into a male god, and El Shaddai appears in the Quran as Al Shadid, the severe one. But his breast in El Shaddai shows it is a loving, I should say, is a loving, nurturing, mothering, comforting part of God's spiritual manifestation. So they turned Shaddai from a loving, feminine goddess into a god. In order to pull off the switchover, even though they knew deep down the people were yearning for female leadership, you find all these cross-dressers, judges wear dresses that they call robes. Men in the choir wear dresses that they call robes. Some people call them robes. They wear wigs in the courthouse. Even the imams wear dresses on robes in that religion. The yogi leader Yogananda, if you look at his picture on his autobiography of a yoga, he looks like a woman. If you look at it at first glance, nobody looks like a woman. Krishna, even Jesus, they portray them looking extremely feminine. And there's a reason behind it. And so, in their attempt to gain hold of the power that's supposed to belong to the women, they had to act in a feminine way because they knew the inner yearning of the people was for this feminine spiritual leadership and guidance. They've also made you, women, and if there's any brothers listening to this, you need to hear this even more, but I'm mainly addressing the sisters. They made you ashamed of your own body. And this bodily shame filters down into what we call psychosomatic illnesses. So they use the excuse that the sight of a female body, your God-created body, will drive a brother insane. So they make us ashamed. They make the sister ashamed of her body. So they make the sister ashamed of her body and tell her that it's her duty to cover herself from head to toe, even her lovely face, sometimes even her eyes. And God knows, cover your hair so that some man who has no control over his spirituality and over his lust, so that he doesn't be driven in the same over the sight of your body. So if a man cannot remain in a state of peace, even if the woman is buck naked, then he's not a man, he's a savage. So at this point, I want to say thank you for listening to part 2 of the MGT Fitrah series, and we will continue on. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them, and we will attempt to answer all of your questions and to bring this topic into full expression and enlightenment. Thank you, and may Ra bless you. Het Heru.